I'm just going to start off with, I love reading the story in Genesis. I love it. It's like any opportunity is a good opportunity. Let's start with chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. Now, verse 2, I always feel like nothing was explained. All I understand in that verse is the earth. That's what I understand.
Do you?
The earth. The earth was without form. Now, there starts the problem for me. And thus, even today, a great debate rages. Some say it's round, some say it's flat. Yeah, it all started here. Anyway, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning was the first day. Right. To understand how all of this works, it's always best to start reading backward from day 7, because then you can kind of understand. So on day 7, God rests. On day 6, he creates the animals and man. Because if you read it from the beginning, it's kind of hard to know. Because it says that it was the first day, but you go like, okay, what? What just happened?
What does that mean?
He has not created the sun and the moon or the stars. So what does the first day mean? Do you see the problem here? And that leads us into the teaching that we call God outside of time. And just outside of time. So I'm going to do a very quick explanation, then we're going to go through the notes. Now, this is familiar, this will be familiar to you by now, but it is not necessarily part of the human consciousness that Yahweh, the creator of heaven and earth, exists perpetually, always, at all times, outside of time. He might at times have acted within space and time. That doesn't mean that he's part of the time continuum. Now, you've heard this before. We have to remind ourselves to always respond to God in this proper positioning, from this proper positioning. He's not in time. We are. And some of you have heard this message several times. Now, when God starts to create, there was darkness. Then he says, "Let there be light." Then he separates the light from the darkness. Now, when he said, "Let there be light," was there still darkness at this moment, and where was it? And where was the light? I'm saying this so that you can understand we know nothing. We can read this and it gives us some information, but the information that it gives us leaves us in a position of knowing nothing. It's important for us to understand this. Because if light was called into being, And then after that, he separates light and darkness. When he said, let there be light, where in what? That's a good. Where in what was the darkness at that moment? Because space and time does not exist. We know that he created the heavens and the earth. He has not created the stars. He has not created the sun. He has not created the moon. So we're assuming that the darkness is in existence because of the absence of him starting or having started his work. So darkness, as far as the Bible shows us, is what is there if God hasn't done anything yet. Darkness in essence is not in existence. It's the absence of what should be in existence. Does that make sense? Okay. So darkness is very difficult to understand. Light, however, can be understood, can be measured, can be scientifically proven. Darkness not. Darkness is the difficult one. I am not aware that science has ever even attempted to understand darkness. Does that make sense? They talk about deep darkness in space.
Whatever that is. But they can see, so it can't be.
No, that's where there's such absence of light.
I understand. Okay, so far away.
Yeah, that's. But
okay.
It's science. Who knows if it's real? But anyway, okay, so this is important for us to start here, for us to just again force our mindsets, our consciousness back to a place of going like, we think we have information in these files. We think we have a file for this. Until you are forced to look for the file.
It might be a file, it's just blank.
It's a black file hidden in the darkness. So this is where we start with this. You can't start in the middle of understanding God outside of time. You can't. Most people try. And they're like, I understand it. No, you've got to start at this place. You've got to start at the place in your consciousness where you think there's something there. Until you start going all the way back there and you think like, what did I understand? You find there's nothing. Somewhere just the same as the universe. If you keep going until there's no more planets and stars, theoretically now we have the end of the universe. Do you understand that we don't know what that is? There's nothing for that. There's no name, no concept, nothing. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you could travel through space until there was no more anything, what then? And that leaves humanity with a massive problem. So they pretend that they have found the end of the universe. That's what they will teach you if you go to the, what's that place? Planetarium. I'll teach you now, we know where the end of the universe is. That's an absolute lie. I don't believe them for once.
Did they move past deep darkness to get there? We can't see it, but we know it's there.
And then they tell you that we know where the end is, we don't know what's beyond, but there must be something beyond, we just haven't found it. And that makes us feel better. It's kind of, okay. If there's something but we don't know what it is yet, then it's fine. We're not just, the entire universe, not just hanging in the middle of nothing. Because that wouldn't be a nice feeling. See the problem we have. So in the absence of Yahweh, that's what we are left with. And then try and understand yourself. So we need the existence of Yahweh for us to have any reflection on our existence. Otherwise, you've got to abandon the understanding of all things and just focus on the fact that you have this life and that's all you have. Then you either have to make it very small or you have to make it very big. But what the religion has done for us is they've filled the peripheral of our vision with it's like a stage production. It's kind of stuff put in the corner so that you can see the end of stuff, but it's not really the end of anything. And that's what makes religion so attractive, because they create a big enough environment for you to feel like you belong. You don't have to worry about the big issues. Problem is that religion now has to take God and put it in our world, put him, whoever he is that they use, in our picture. Does that make sense? And people don't mind it. They don't think about it. So he's in heaven, but heaven is within the construct. There's kind of an outline to, heaven is there, but there's an outline behind it. Does it make sense? There's an horizon behind heaven. So we can deal with the whole thing. It's just not on this earth, but it's there. You know? We don't have to worry about where it is, because as long as we believe in God, he looks at my heart, I'm fine. That's basically what religion does for you. Does it make sense? And so basically they go like, if you don't mind being a bit stupid, then you're going to feel safe for the rest of your life. And that's why we have this building block. And we can't get used to this building block, because this is our way. This is the way that God gave me to start to shatter the mirrors around our peripheral, so that we don't just keep looking at the reflection of lies. Okay, so what do we know? We know we don't know. And it's a great relief. For me, it was a great relief to understand and to know that I know nothing beyond what is written in the Word. I cannot find it out, and there's nobody on earth that's going to explain it to me, because there's no one else that can find it out. It cannot be found out through visions or dreams or spiritual visitations. It boils down to this. God has given us a framework to our existence and our understanding of him. And it's called the Bible. And in the Bible, the framework starts for us with that Yahweh created the heaven and the earth, and it's called in the beginning. And in the beginning cannot possibly be a moment, and it cannot be a moment in time, because time does not yet exist. And now we have a wonderful starting point, because the same framework at the end of all my hope and all my faith and all my existence, the one that will return, he now forms the framework for my beginning of thought. So I can have an identity, I can feel safe. That's why it's important. Now we're going to start working through this. So if you want to just look at the days of creation, start at the back, go like day 6, day 5, day 4, and then that's when you get in trouble, because day 6 makes sense. Day 6, he creates the animals and man. All good. But the problem is, when he creates the plants, he hasn't created the sun and the moon yet. Let's read it. Can you read it first?
From Genesis. Okay. So, Okay, we're going to pick it up in verse 6 then. Or do you want to read it backwards?
Read it backwards.
Backwards. Okay, sorry. So, okay, verse 24. Then God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature according to its kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth, each according to its kind." And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth according to its kind, cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth."
Now leave a bit backward.
No,
not
I
forward,
just want to see there's more.
Yeah, but now go backward.
Okay, we get it. Okay. Then, verse 20, then God said, "Let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament of the heavens." So God created great sea creatures and every living thing that moves, with which the waters abounded according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good.
So if you look at the movie a little bit in reverse, he creates man before that, the fish and the birds. Interesting. Okay. Now, so there's fish, birds. Before that?
Okay, that was the fifth day. Then, verse 14, then God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth." And it was so. Then God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, so the evening and the morning were the fourth day.
So then, before he created the fish and the birds, then after that, the animals and man, just before that, he creates the stars and the sun and the moon. So all of the galaxy and the universe. And then before that?
Then God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb that yields seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth." And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, the herb that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And God saw that it was good, so the evening and the morning were the third day.
Amangile, did you know this? That the trees and the grass were growing before there was a sun or a moon or stars. I think God is trying to communicate something about himself here. Okay, so
I started a bit late. The third day actually starts at verse 9. Sorry.
okay. Now, and then before that?
Okay, well, like on the same day, on the third day, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. And then he makes the grass. Then, verse 6, then God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Thus God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day.
Then before that?
Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day.
Okay, so scientifically, we define the day as caused by the light of the sun, and the dawn of day is the result of the sun rising, and we define night as the time when the sun is not shining upon that part of the earth. And that is how science defines day and night, but the Bible doesn't define it as such. Man. No wonder there's a big debate between scientists and believers. Because how do we now tell them that according to the Bible, day and night is not dependent on the sun and the moon? But that's what the Bible says. So it starts early on. Okay, but before we try and get into that, this leaves us with the reality that the Bible talks about the first day and the second day and the third day. But because there was no sun and there was no moon and there was no stars and there was no grass and there was water and there was God. And the rest of what there was, we don't know what it was. That first period of time, although the Bible calls it day 1 and 2, there's no way for us to know how long it was. Could be 24 hours, could be 2 million years. And so now we start to explain some of what science is seeing. So what they see in geology could simply be this period of time. Does it make sense? And we say this and we define this so that there's some Christians that insist, no, day 1 was a day, and it was only 6 days. And that's why scientists think they're stupid, because they're insisting on a mute point. It's based on words written here with very clear context that the sun and the moon and the stars did not yet exist. The day and the night was not dependent on the sun rising. Doesn't make sense. What we do know is that Yahweh defined darkness as night and the light as day. Okay. Now, let's read through our notes. We did unpack it for you. You can go and look at it, wrestle through it. Why is this important? It's important because we need to have a constant mindset of Yahweh in His existence not being affected by time. Time has no power over Him. He didn't start off within time. Time is what He put in place. It's subjected to Him. It's obedient to Him. And time is applicable only to what He did on the earth. There's no effect on the kingdom of heaven. Now, even when He creates day and night, puts the sun and the moon and the stars in place, and they talk about seasons. Even the seasons cannot be defined according to what we now know as seasons. Because if you go to the tropics, they don't have winter. Which proves that just because we see seasons as winter, spring, summer, and autumn, it proves that a person living on the equator, they don't see seasons like that. There's people that has never experienced the winter in their lifetime.
They just have dry and wet.
They don't know what it is. And if you live in Borneo, you don't even have dry and wet. You have monsoon and whatever is less monsoon.
Big monsoon and small.
Yeah. That's basically it. You have more mud and less mud. That's it. So that proves that when it says for the seasons, it's not talking about winter and summer at that point of time in creation. And so we have to go take our minds back there to create kind of a framework from where we think, so that we don't fall back into thinking from whatever was there before. Because through religion and kindergarten and science, they've put false frameworks in place for us to operate from. Okay. So in the beginning, it's kind of difficult, but then you get used to it and it becomes a safe space. If time has no bearing on God, then that puts him in his proper existence, and I can relate to him properly. Okay. Now, will you start reading for us?
Yes. Okay. So, time. Time does not begin when God said, "Let there be light." The length and duration of the moment when there was only light, before God divided the light from the darkness, is undefined by the Bible. It could have been a moment or 1,000,000 years. Even when God called the light day and the darkness night, and thus called into existence the first day, does not constitute time yet. What is in existence now is day and night in an alternating pattern according to the will and word of God. As the creation story unfolds, we now have day and night according to the will of God, but this does not necessarily mean that time exists. It is only in verse 14 of Genesis chapter 1 that God creates the light and the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night. The lights in the firmament of the heavens will now become signs and for seasons, for days and years. So we have day and night and seasons according to the lights in the firmament of the heavens as created and placed in order by Yahweh. In verse 16, God makes two great lights to rule the day and night, and he also made the stars. He set these lights in the firmament of the heavens to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness, and so the evening and the morning were the fourth day. The construct of time throughout the creation story, up until the lights were set in the sky, cannot be defined according to any measure of time that is in use by humanity today or has been used historically. We have the earth, abundant with plant life, herbs yielding seed, fruit trees and grass growing and establishing for an unknown period of existence.
Do you get what we say? That day, without stars, moon, sun, or any other planets, when the plants were growing, we cannot say that it was a 24-hour day. And we can also not say that it was not a 24-hour day.
But there would be no measurement.
Plants had to be established for an undefined period of time that God defined as day and night. That's all we know. But nothing leads us. There's no way to prove that it was a 24-hour period of time. So up until this moment, this time when the plants are growing, all we know is that according to, subjected to God's own will and words, there is what he calls light and darkness, day and night. But it's according to his will, his movement. There's no one to observe it except him. He's there. So I want us to now put a marker here. So up until this moment, time doesn't have meaning. Not as we understand it. You can do nothing with it. You don't interpret it. You cannot understand it. Plants were growing in the light that God called forth without the sun. That's what we know. Okay.
Yahweh is seen to be actively interacting with all of creation for the duration of this undefined period of light and darkness. For the extent of this period, there exists no construct of time as we know and define time today. God exists, acts, speaks, and creates as master and creator of time and over time beyond the governance or influence of time. And so the creation story continues to unfold with creation, created man, and the creator God existing in relational perfection without any factor or element of disruption or change. The created realm in its perfect state exists as a continuum of the everlasting kingdom of heaven, with man created in perfection as a continuum of Yahweh, without the numbering of days or any cumbrance of time, the existence of all things void of the influence or impact of death. Death does not exist, nor has it ever manifested. Death is not. And in the absence of death, there is the absence of aging. In the absence of corruption, where the passing of time has no effect of corruption, such as aging or expiry, there is only the continuance of the dispensation of perfection. The only change sanctioned by the will and words of Yahweh within this existence of perpetual perfection is constituted in the command to multiply. The only agent of change in this perfect continuum of creation and eternal kingdom is multiplication. In this state of perfect creation, multiplication is a blessing that multiplies the very blessing that it represents. So then, creation continues without the impact of corruption or death, with only the godly blessing of multiplication of life. Time, therefore, exerts no negative force and has no negative connotation. Time itself passes only to reveal the unfolding blessing and goodness of Yahweh. Just as time does not change the person or existence of Yahweh, it was never created to bring any harm or corruption to creation. Do you want to expound or do we continue?
It creates a longing in me to know this. We cannot reverse it. We lost it. Humanity lost that. But what a beautiful thing God intended to create. Time has no negative impact. If the passing of time brings no corruption, no change, then time doesn't matter. Irrelevant.
For example, if we imagine the planet Saturn, there's obviously a form of day and night because it rotates around the sun. So there's light and darkness, and it has moons, but nothing changes. It's revolving, nothing changes. So is there time? We could say yes, but according to what? And how is it measured? What is it? If I go there and I age on the planet Saturn, now there's some kind of hold on what's happening. Now time can start to be measured over a period because there's change happening at a certain rate. So the rate of change would determine what time is and how it works. But without anyone there, time is irrelevant. We could even say it doesn't exist. There's light and darkness. It might be moving around the sun, but that doesn't mean there's time. Nothing changes.
The only thing that's being eaten is trees and grass, fruit, seeds, but it's perpetually creating more, replacing itself. So that doesn't matter either. Think about it. You would never walk past an apple tree and it would have no apples. See, this becomes extremely important in our understanding of covenant. It's impossible to understand covenant if we don't first endeavor to get a hold of this outside of time, the perfect creation continuum of Yahweh. That's what covenant is supposed to some degree, supposed to restore it to us. That's what we lost. You would never walk past a strawberry plant and there wouldn't be strawberries. The thought of it not being there doesn't exist for Adam. The birds might eat, the insects might eat, the animals might eat, but everything is continuously replaced and replenished. It's one of the first steps for us as New Covenant believers to enter into a beginning understanding of covenant. That's why this teaching is so important. That's what God intended. That's how it all started. It's what His mind was, His heart was for creation, for us. It was a continuum of the kingdom, and the kingdom is Him. You cannot separate the kingdom from the king or Yahweh from heaven. One continuum. There's no corner of the kingdom of heaven that's not filled with His glory. And the Bible promises that the earth will be the same as it was once. And this is where we start. We're not going to build more on this. It's something that I really want to encourage you. Don't think, oh, I understand it and I want to move on to something. It's something, the more you allow, it's like you pull back the curtains of your mind so the light can just fully fill the room. And it's like when you do pull back the curtains in the morning, you don't try and measure how much sunlight is coming in. You just let as much of it in as possible. And you don't think about it, it's there. You didn't cause it, you didn't look for it, it's there. And this is this truth that outside of time is. Is this where we were supposed to be? So it's as relevant to the born-again believer as any other important doctrine. It's relevant to you. And we are always in the process of entering a little bit more into that. Staying in that awareness longer with Him. Because there's this possibility that we stop racing against time, especially when we are in prayer, especially when we are in His presence. And the beautiful potential is that we can find a place with Him when we enter into His presence that time disappears. It might continue around you. It means that prayer changes, worship changes. Wisdom comes from that. I don't know how to explain it to you. Is that when your mind loses its awareness of the seconds ticking by, you can enter into eternal wisdom and be there for a while. You can come out with the substance of it, if that makes sense. We just forget to do it. We don't hunger for it enough. We don't understand the value of it. This is what was when there was no time. We have to understand that Adam and Eve is living in a creation without time. There might be day and night, but that's it. Doesn't mean there's time. Because if there's no end of life, there was this potential of them multiplying out of the blessing. That was the only agent. Do you understand what it means? That was the only agent of change that God sanctioned. God sanctioned only one agent of change. Everything else was as He is. And when He says to Moses, I will be who I will be, or I am who I am, He's speaking about Messiah and fullness. That was sanctioned in the beginning. as He blesses them to multiply, Yahweh will become manifest in all His fullness. Doesn't mean that He wasn't that. Doesn't mean He's becoming that. Just means He's manifesting it in creation Himself. All of the multiplication out of the blessing was Yahweh manifesting His glory. We were created to be that. You were created to be that. When God had you in mind, in His heart, when God created the design of you in His heart, we used the word created, it's the will. When He willed you in His heart, you were just a continuum of that perfection. You were to be His manifest glory, becoming an agent for the multiplication of His glory within creation. Childbirth was to have no pain, no negative connotation to it. No, we don't know what it could have been. We don't know what it would have been. Because it was a blessing. If only we could have a small picture of what it would have been like. They lost it way too early. But it doesn't mean that we get to just write it off and say we lost it so we don't mind it. See, that's why this ministry is called In the Garden, because we have a longing and a desire to let more of that light of the truth fill us. Because that's covenant. That's why we are born again. We're going to remember. We're going to remember and rediscover. The angel with the sword keeping us out of the garden is no more for us. He keeps flesh out, let spirit in. So, when we talk about not walking in the flesh, we're talking about taking the obstacle out of the way. Now, that redefines blessing. We don't even yet understand what blessing is. But the potential still exists. That's why He didn't just save us and we're like, you allowed into heaven. No, He gives us a new creation. Through baptism, we get reborn, recreated, so that we can make a way back to that reality. Now that's our mandate on earth. That's why we are here. Not here to just be church. Not here to just be kind of good. We're not just here to fight battles. We're not just here to overcome. We're here for that. We're supposed to reveal the glory of God. And so far, as the generations have passed and humanity has eaten time, consumed it, humanity has chosen not to really fulfill any of that mandate. It's still bound up in Adam. Enoch, one example. And so who are we to say that we might just go for it? We're the church. What else should the church be? Why else would we come to church? If we're going to come to church for a lesser destiny, for a lesser gospel, for only some parts of the Bible being applicable. If we were going to do that, then good heavens, I'd rather go to some Sunday morning market and eat some pancakes. I don't know. So we come to church because we are the church. We're called to that. And it's an unfulfilled potential, unfulfilled mandate. The seed is still in the barn. We don't want to carry on and on. That's why it's a short message. We can easily look at it and go like, okay, I just have to understand God exists outside of time. I got it. Thing is, it starts to unlock. You have to first unlock your own mind so that covenant can start to impress you. Because we can hope with the heart on what we understand covenant to give. I want a better life. But when the mind starts seeing beyond the fleshly existence, when your spirit starts to connect with who you are eternally outside of time yourself, you cannot connect only to Messiah in the future. You have to connect back to Adam. It's impossible. If you're only connecting to seated in Messiah, then you're not fully connecting. If you connect in any way with eternity mindset to yourself risen and resurrected and perfected in Messiah, then you must automatically connect with Adam in perfection. I mean, that starts to happen. It makes the world you live in more frustrating, but it does create just a little crack in the door to peek through. Go like, what's on the other side of the lie? The door's not locked anymore. We keep shutting the door, but it's not locked. He keeps opening up a crack and he goes like, if you will just look through it. And we go like, oops, I closed it again. Okay. Like, ever get to a door and you didn't understand which way it opens? Instead of pushing, you start pulling. And you're
especially if it's a double door.
And yeah. You're pulling, and you see the thing that says push. And you're like, anybody see me? No, it happened to me way too often in my life. So, but the fact is, we do those kind of things. It's like that. Okay, so the door's not locked. And that's what happens when you get it wrong. Like, why did they lock the door? It's a sliding door. Okay, so a lot of things were said. You start with understanding that God didn't just exist out of time then, outside of time. He's still not in time. Yes, let's read it, sorry.
God outside of
time is a problem.
Okay, God outside of time. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is the opening line of the Bible and the introduction of God. He is introduced as the creator of the heavens and the earth. And this first sentence holds the first great mystery to be explored by those who seek to know God. The mystery is contained in the words, in the beginning. The first three words of the Bible cannot possibly refer to time and space. We've now proven that. The narrative will continue to place this event and the person of Yahweh within the context where neither day nor night exists as yet. It actually places Yahweh in a context where neither the heavens nor the earth is yet in existence. God is introduced as existing outside of space and time, existing without the context of the heavens, the earth, or time. God exists outside of time, and just because he created the context and the governing bodies of space and time, it does not now give us any reason to think that his existence or person is changed by what he has created. We know that according to his perfect will, that he has determined within himself that in the dispensation of the fullness of the times, his existence and context will be changed by that which he has determined to reconcile to himself in him. This change, as perceived by the unfolding of his prophetic will within time, is expressed through time only to be absorbed in the reality that it is out of this fullness that he creates in the beginning and from the beginning. As the Bible unfolds, we will discover that it is from his finished work that he creates. The key to his eternal perfection is found in the first three words of the Bible, in the beginning. In the beginning cannot possibly refer to a moment in time, as time at this moment has not yet come into existence. The mystery to this seeming paradox is revealed in the person of his Son as being identified by the Bible as the beginning and the end. The beginning is therefore a person, the very person of Messiah. I'm going to read one verse. So the Son says he is the beginning and the end. In Colossians, when we did the Messiah study, we read a lot that it says, in him all things were created, and in him all things consist. And then John chapter 1 starts with saying, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. So we could think, oh, well, yes, that makes sense. In the beginning he was there with God when all things started. There was no time. There was no space. What if it just says, in the beginning was the Word, as in the Word is the beginning. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things, full measures, all things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. So biblically, we don't have context for time in the creation story, but we do have a person who is the beginning, biblically.
Very important for us to continuously see Yahushua in the right perspective, or from the right perspective, and especially Messiah and the church. That continues to be important. So next week we're going to continue with this. We're going to look at the concept of the religious lie that God is present everywhere. Look at that. We're going to look at the rest of outside of time, and then conclude this building block. Looks like the simplest little building block. But the other building blocks depend on this. The biblical understanding depends on this. Okay. So now, for the rest of the week, keep looking at it. Keep trying to let more of the light shine through. It's not, you read the words, you think about the concept, you understand it. Your brain will resist it at first, because your brain will try and use what it already knows to understand. And then you've got to teach your brain that what it knew cannot be used to understand this. Your brain will have to submit. Your intellect will have to reprogram. So that is the secret. Okay, that's an amen for today then.